And welcome back to another podcast with Mr. Hagan. And on this podcast, we're going to continue looking at examples of the entire model: long-run aggregate supply curve, short-run aggregate supply curve, aggregate demand curve, the supply and demand for money in the money supply, the money market with interest rates on the vertical axis, the quantity of money on the horizontal, and we're going to run through connections of these of this entire model. And so let's jump right into it. Let's do a real world event, and let's go back to the 2000s, early 2000s, maybe 2000 to 2007. We get a housing boom in the United States, so we get a large increase in the price of houses, large increase in the price of houses. So housing prices begin getting bid up very, very high. So what's my initial determinant, my initial real-world event that's going to change? This is going to be a change in consumption wealth on the aggregate demand side. As the price of houses go up, people are wealthier, feel wealthier than they did before, and that's going to cause them to go out and buy more stuff. When they feel wealthy, they're going to engage in more consumption. And on our model, that's going to cause the aggregate demand curve to shift out to the right. As the aggregate demand curve shifts out to the right, okay, that's going to move us along the short and aggregate supply curve. Why? Well, prices are going to get bid up as people start buying more stuff. They feel wealthier than they did before, so they're going to start buying stuff. And as they buy stuff, they're going to bid up prices. All right, let's record what's happening so far. My aggregate demand story is we had an increase in wealth because of higher housing prices, and that caused an increase in consumption. People go out and start buying stuff. As they do, they begin bidding up the prices of goods and services. As they bid up the price of goods and services, all right, that means we got to do this again. We got to move along that short and aggregate supply curve, which means, okay, real wages are equal to nominal wages divided by prices. That's NW, nominal wages divided by prices, divided by the price level. And let's see, we're saying sticky prices, or sticky wages. We're assuming that wages are sticky. So as prices get bid up, as customers go out there and buy stuff, prices get bid up. As prices get bid up, if nominal wages are sticky because of wage contracts and whatever, that means real wages are going to decline. And if real wages decline, that means if real wages go down, then companies are going to increase hiring. They're going to go out there and hire more workers. And as they go out there and hire more workers, then that's going to cause and increase production. That's going to cause the gross domestic product to go up. So the aggregate demand curve shifted to the right, and that caused prices to go up. That caused gross domestic product to go up, and that caused unemployment to go down. So this part of this is a good part of the story. But what's the problem? The problem is right here. The problem is the higher rates of inflation. What are our possible responses to this? Well, if you're a classical economist, and this is on this video, we're going to talk about using monetary policy, but let's just think about the classical for a moment. If you were a classical economist, then you might say, do nothing. I'm just going to stay out of the way and let this play out. And that means that the lower unemployment is eventually going to cause wages to go up, and that's going to cause the short and aggregate supply curve to shift back in. Don't write this down if you're taking notes. That causes the short and aggregate supply curve to shift back in, and that's going to get us back to the long run equilibrium. That's if you're a classical economist. If you're a Keynesian economist, you might say you're going to respond to this higher level of gross domestic product by contractionary fiscal policy. You're going to, prices are too high, we have inflation, so we're going to decrease government spending and increase taxes, and that's going to cause the aggregate demand curve to shift back into the left. That would be the Keynesian response. Now, let's get rid of that because we're not doing classical and Keynesian responses right now. We're going to look at the monetary policy response. So there's three responses. We could respond using a classical point of view, we could respond using a Keynesian point of view, or we could respond respond with monetary policy. All right, what do we do with monetary policy? Well, let's think it backwards. We're going to get rid of inflation. We need to shift the aggregate demand curve back into the left. Okay, if we want to shift the aggregate demand curve back into the left, that means that we need to decrease consumption and investment. Well, how are we going to make consumption and investment go down? Well, we could do that if we raised interest rates. If interest rates went up, people would borrow less and engage in less consumption and investment. All right, how do I get interest rates to go up? Well, I need to shift that supply curve in here to the left. Well, how am I going to shift supply into the left? Well, now we got to say, what can the Federal Reserve do to shift supply of money to the left? What can they do in order to decrease the money supply? So let's draw it out here. We got the Federal Reserve, and then we have some guy. Could any person, typically probably a banker or something. And let's see, the Federal Reserve wants to reduce the money supply, so they could do this if they go out into the market and they, let's see, I think if they sell bonds. What happens if they sell bonds? Well, the Federal Reserve, if they begin selling bonds, they would give this guy a bond, and this guy would give money to the Federal Reserve, and that's money that used to be in his savings account or his checking account, used to be part of the M1 money supply, and now it's going to move to the Federal Reserve, and the Fed's going to sit on it, and if the Fed sits on it, then that money is now out of circulation. The money supply has gone down. The amount of money in savings accounts and checking accounts and so on goes down. So that's going to cause the supply curve for money to shift into the left. That's going to cause the supply of money to shift into the left. That's a decrease in the quantity of money that's out there. Okay, if the money supply goes down, there's less money out there for people to borrow. That means interest rates are going to go up. People are going to borrow less, and as they borrow less, that means they will engage in less consumption and less investment. So, all right, let's record what's happened here. My real world event: sell bonds. Federal Reserve's going to sell bonds. And if the Federal Reserve sells bonds, then our determinant is going to be change in consumption interest rates, change in investment interest rates. As interest rates go up, then that's going to cause consumption and investment both to go down. As they go down, that's going to cause that's going to cause aggregate demand to decrease. The aggregate demand curve is going to shift back into the left. The aggregate demand curve is going to shift back into the left. So what's my aggregate demand story? My aggregate demand story is that we have, let's see, we got higher interest rates. And the higher interest rates is going to cause lower consumption. And the higher interest rates are going to cause lower investment. Both of those things shift the aggregate demand curve into the left. As the aggregate demand curve shifts to the left, we move along that aggregate supply curve. Prices are going to begin falling again as people buy less stuff. As they start reducing the amount of buying they do, then we got to talk about moving along that aggregate supply curve. And so that means that we're going to be talking about sticky wages. So real wages equals nominal wages divided by the price level. Price level is now going to begin to come back down. Prices are going to begin to fall. As prices fall, real wages are going to go up. As real wages go up, companies are going to decrease the amount of people that they're willing to hire. And so as a result of that, gross domestic product is going to go back down. There's our decrease in gross domestic product. And that means unemployment will go back up to where it was before. But the problem that we had was the higher prices, and that problem has been solved because price levels are going to get bid back down. So prices are going to return to where they started. GDP is going to return to where it started. Unemployment's going to return to where it started. Let's make a final statement here. What was our original problem? My original problem was inflation, high prices. That was our original problem. Our policy solution, what was our response to this? Our policy solution was to, right here, sell bonds, was to sell bonds. So the Federal Reserve comes in, they sell bonds, that causes an increase in interest rates. The increase in interest rates causes a decrease in consumption and investment, and the decrease in consumption and investment is going to cause the aggregate demand curve to shift into the left, and that's going to send us back to where we were before. That's going to move us back to where we were before. All right, so there it is. There's the two things that can happen on the last video. I'm going to flip back to the last video. In the last video, we did an example of the aggregate demand shifting into the left, and the Federal Reserve buys bonds. We had a recession was the problem, and they buy bonds in order to solve that problem and shift aggregate demand back to the right. And on the example we just did on this video, the aggregate demand curve shifted to the right, creating inflation. That was our problem. And then the Federal Reserve sold bonds to get that aggregate demand to shift back to the left and solve the problem. All right, this has been Mr. Hagan on another podcast. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you on the next podcast.